Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is our bigger show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week to a comic book store near you. Coming out to a comic book store near you, or if you shop with us at infinityflux.net, you can head over there as well. Order these books we're talking about while supplies last. They are up there right now, so do not delay, hasten there to get these goods because there is some great ones this week and it's a very big week. So this is going to be extra important that you check it out so you know what you're getting into when you go to order or head into the store. So let's get into this massive week of comics.
Yeah, we're going to start with X Factor #1, our next book in the From the Ashes era X-Men books. This is written by Mark Russell and the art is by Bob Quinn. And in this book, the government has put together a team of mutants that officially work for them and also kind of corporate. Everything just feels very, I don't know, corporate, you know? And
it's also very social media.
Yeah, well, it feels a lot like Youngblood in the early 90s, although they didn't have social media back then, but it feels like that, except for the fact that the public loved Youngblood back then, and the public doesn't like these mutants very much at all. The team consists of Angel and Feral and Rusty Collins, Zyber, and Cameo. And they each feel kind of weird about being on this team, but they're put up in a nice house with training facilities and all that, so they try to make the best of it. And one night they're sent out on a mission to take on a mutant mercenary group known as X-Term. I don't want to spoil how that goes, but let's just say that it doesn't go very well for them. They don't really work well together as a team because the team is sort of artificial to begin with.
Yeah,
right?
they're not natural where they play off each other well. Their powers don't always
complement each other. So I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to spoil anything else. But I will say that I really like this one a lot. When they announced all of these From the Ashes era books, this one was probably one of the ones I was looking forward to the least. But I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I did enjoy it. The whole thing starts out kind of goofy, and it's supposed to. It's written that way. Like the whole like corporate team, it's all done very tongue-in-cheek, and they're like, oh, look at our likes and look at our social media numbers, and this is great, and we're gonna have recruiting advertisements and that kind of thing. And so it's very over the top on purpose, but the book does eventually sort of take a turn, about halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through, and then the story that we're going to get after that seems like it's going to be really interesting. So I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought that I would, so I can't wait to see where it goes.
There's a really funny moment with Cameo where they're all kind of making their debut.
Yeah.
And Cameo gets out of the car, but Cameo has the powers like Mystique or whatever.
Or Morph, yeah.
And comes out as Beast, and everyone's like, yeah, we love Beast. And then it transforms into Cameo who just has no face. And they're like, ooh, no.
Yeah, they're really disappointed. So that gives you the idea about what the public thinks about this new team. But there is our A cover right there. And we got some cool variants. We have this Lupacino variant. We have this really nice Marcus Toe variant. I like that one a lot.
That's awesome.
We've got our Disco Dazzler variant. We'll see some more of these throughout the show. Can't have a #1 without a Scotty Young variant, so that's really cool. And then we've got the 1 in 25 Asrar variant that we're selling for $14.99. And then this is the 1 in 50 Marcus Toe Virgin variant that we're selling for $34.99.
Yeah, this is definitely a book where you read the first one and you're like, I've got to read the second one because you realize what the first one is.
Right.
It's definitely it's set up, but in the best kind of way.
Yeah.
It really gets you on board with what this concept is and everything. Yep. So yeah, very, very interesting. First up for me, I've got Spider Society. I didn't realize it has a subtitle. Spider Society Enter the Spider-Verse.
Oh, I didn't know I had that either.
Versers. Enter the Spider-Versers.
Oh, not versus versers, like they are the Spider-Versers. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know if it's a word.
It is now.
So this is written by Alex Segura, and the art is by Scott Godlewski. And first of all, I'll say I did really like the art in this. I thought the art had a really good fluidness to the spider people, how they're all moving and everything like
slightly
that.
more cartoony in a good way, a little bit more
Yeah.
stylized, with the moving eyes and everything.
Yeah.
But it looks really good.
And I feel like you have to do something like that because you do have a wide range of spider people in here, from Spider Punk 2099 to Spider Ham, and even was it Spider Ramen?
Yeah.
Which is a spider person that's just a big bowl of ramen soup.
That's a little bit too goofy for me, but he's in there.
So the word goes out in this. You've got Miles and Gwen having a good moment together, just talking about like, hey, catching up, how you been doing, all that. When a call goes out, they kind of get a mass, like, I think Miles
Like a
calls
group
it,
text.
yeah, like a spam text
Yeah.
from I guess it's from Madam Web, who summons them all to a certain area because after the previous, I guess the end of the Spider-Verse story, I think, is when it left all of these spider people in New York. We haven't really seen them do anything.
I forgot about that. Where have they been this whole time?
Yeah, they all got trapped on the 616 universe.
Where were they during Blood Hunt?
They were just staying inside.
They could have used their help, I'm sure.
Yeah. So they were all staying inside until this call went out. So everybody meets up. But something's weird when they all get there. They're all chatting and everything, and they realize, where is Madam Web?
Yeah.
Also, where's Aranya? And that was put as like the lead of the Spider Society. She's not there as well. Miguel is not there. So something's a little off.
Peter's gone too.
Peter's gone, yeah. I think he got kicked out of the club.
Right.
They're like, you've got to go do other stuff.
He doesn't want any part of it.
No. When Aranya suddenly arrives and said it seems like it's too late because the Sinister Squadron is after them, which is basically the Sinister Six, but made up of spider villains from the multiverse. So that's kind of your instigating incident that's going to start this.
And it's more like Sinister 60 because there's a whole bunch of them,
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and they have a certain goal, and it's not to kill the spider people. It seems like they want them for something, and a special team of the good spider people are going to have to work together to rescue the ones that have been taken and find out what's going on. So it's a really interesting first issue. There's a lot of characters going on, but there is a lot of action in this as well.
Yeah.
There's like half the book is just spider people fighting the Sinister Squadron. So that was really cool. I'm not sure the purpose of this book, other than they just want to keep the Spider-Verse idea going. But I do like it. It looks like going forward, it's going to be a more refined team.
Yes.
It's not going to be the thousands that are there, or the hundreds that are there, whatever. It's going to be a like select few, and I like the team they picked out for that. So we'll have to see how this continues going forward, but a pretty good first start for Spider Society. And of course, when you got a lot of spider people, you got a lot of variants. So first off, we have this one. This is the Ramcharon variant. And I did see like Spider Boy's there, but like only in one panel.
Oh, I didn't see
Yeah,
him.
there's like a bunch of spider people. You're like, where's that person? Oh, they're there. But they're just not, they don't really make a big footprint in there.
Yeah, I didn't see that at all.
We've got an Art Germ variant, which I really like this one with Gwen. And you can see, I didn't notice before, but the little Miles poking out down there.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool. We also have the Window Shades variant by Baldari. And we have this 1 in 25 Tony Daniel variant we're selling for $20 over on infinityflux.net. Oh, that one's really cool too.
Yeah, that's great. Peter's not in there though. I don't know
Peter,
why.
not featured in this issue.
All right, well, I'm going to stick with the From the Ashes books, and I'm going to talk about X-Men number 2. We've got a bunch of number 1s to talk about still, but I want to talk about this because this issue is awesome. It's written by Jed MacKay. The art is by Ryan Stegman. And in this one, the X-Men head off to San Francisco. They are tracking an X gene that has been activated. But when they get there, they see the entire city is under an alien invasion. There's ships in the sky. There's aliens in the streets.
They're kind of like jellyfish or like Metroid. How Metroid looked like in the game, like little floaty blobs.
Yeah. And so the X-Men, like the whole issue is the X-Men fighting this alien invasion. It's really cool. There's a lot of great action in this. And, a lot of, all the team members get a really great moment. Some of them fight on the ground. Some of them fight up in the sky. There is a really great 2-page spread of Juggernaut getting a really cool moment. That's all I'll say about that. There's actually not a lot to say about this book because it is all just fighting and really cool action. But I will say that it is all explained what this alien invasion is, why it's going on. It's not starting a big new story arc where the X-Men are constantly fighting aliens. Like you understand all of it by the end, and
Yeah,
it's
it
really
seems
interesting.
kind of frivolous at first, and by the end you go, "Oh, I see what they're doing," and this is definitely building up the current storyline.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the ending is really interesting too. This is also the last part of the Deadpool Wolverine weapon extraction backup story. So if you've been collecting all the issues of that, reading that story, don't miss this because this is the last issue of this. There's no QR code in the back of this. For those of you guys who aren't a fan of the QR code, it is not in this book at all. I'll say, I really, really enjoyed the first issue of X-Men. I like this one even better.
Yeah.
I thought this was even better. The artwork is insane. The action, I like the way the characters work together, and it's not always the same pairings. Like in the first issue, we saw a nice little duo of Juggernaut and Magic, being buddy buddy. But in this one, it's Juggernaut and a different character. So they all, we see them all just like being a team and just working together really well. So just fantastic issue. I love this so much. So we have our A cover right there, and we got some cool variants. This is the Marvel the multiverse role playing game variant. We have another Disco Dazzler variant. We have this really nice J. Scott Campbell Magic variant. That's the one that I pre-ordered. Of course, we have our Deadpool Wolverine variant. If you've been getting them for that storyline, you can get that cover. We've got the 1 in 25 Clark variant that we're selling for $14.99. And then we have the 1 in 100, which I'm going to handle with very kid gloves. The 1 in 100 J. Scott Campbell Virgin variant that we're selling for just under the price of one omnibus. I feel like I need to pay $20 just to hold it. Like I'm so scared to hold this. I'm gonna put this down because I don't want to mess that up.
What I did think is cool about this issue 2 is issue 2, comma TOO and number 2.
Yeah.
You really, and we got a hint of in the first one that this X-Men team, although they are good people, that this is Scott's team, he's leading all of that. They are still watching out for themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
They will be a little bit scrappier with how they deal with things rather than everything at face value. When you read it, you'll see, but they're playing stuff close to the vest.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh
yeah, absolutely. Oh, with the way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So next up for me, I've got a really fun one. This is Werewolf by Night Red Band number 1. So this is a new mini-series written by Jason Liu, and the art is by Sergio Davila. And now this is, as you can see, this is a polybagged issue. It is a red band, much like the Blood Hunt books did the red band, which means it's a little bit more violent, it's a little bit more over the top. I would say it's still... Sometimes it's this is not much different than what I would get in a regular book, but it does add a little bit spice to the issue with that. So this is really cool.
And there's not a non-red band.
Right, there is not a
There's
non-red.
only this.
Yeah, this is a strictly, no PG-13 version.
Right,
I'd say this is actually probably PG-13. Yeah. But no regular edition. Everything is polybagged for this one, even the variants, all of that. So in this, it's really cool because, yes, it's a mini-series, but it's not like a mini-series that takes place just at some time. This is actually what's going on to Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night in this, is going on kind of concurrently with Marvel events. Because in this, Jack Russell has returned to a mysterious castle in the Colorado Rockies, which I didn't read the previous Werewolf by Night series from a few years ago, but apparently that was established. It was Dracula's castle, but it was in Colorado.
Oh, I didn't read that. Yeah.
Jack Russell's kind of set up that as his home. It's really cool because this actually begins with a kid who's a YouTuber going in there, and they're like, I'm going to check out this haunted house. It's so mysterious. And of course he runs into Jack Russell, who is just even when he's not in werewolf form, he's still pretty frightening. Yeah. But, he's having to deal with these kids and all of that. Jack Russell is also working as a ferry boat captain. He just really is trying to stay off the radar of superhero stuff, of all of that. He knows that he's also dangerous, and he just wants kind of a quiet life off to the side. But what's really interesting in this is while he's doing that job, the skies go dark because the Blood Hunt event started. So this is not a Blood Hunt tie-in, but is Blood Hunt adjacent, because the story from this kind of comes from symptoms of the Blood Hunt event. So the skies go dark, and whereas Jack Russell can usually, when he transforms, he's gotten control over the kind of beast within when he turns into a werewolf. But something happens when he transforms when the skies go dark because of, and this happened to the other Werewolf by Night in that one-shot issue. He becomes even more fierce and over the top, and when he wakes up, days have passed, and he does not remember what he did when he transformed, and that turns into finding out that he kind of went on a rampage and looks like he decimated a lot of the people in the town around him. So now he's got to figure out what happened, and he's still not ready to really go out and do that for himself. But he's going to get some help figuring that out. But I'm not going to get into that. But there is kind of a B plot here that's really interesting, where the kind of remaining creatures of the night that survive the blood hunt have kind of gathered together. They're kind of cultists, vampires, evil magicians. All of those come together because they want to create a new Darkhold. They have a leader among them, but that leader doesn't last for long when another Marvel villain comes in and takes over those duties pretty single-handedly. So, really interesting story. You've got the Werewolf by Night story, and then you've got what's going on over here with these other kind of dark people, these evil, like, occult characters, I guess, horror characters in the Marvel Universe. So, it's going to be cool to see how these kind of come together, and what does this mean for the larger Marvel Universe. But, yep, this is a miniseries. It's all red band, so it's all over the top. There's a few key scenes where you're like, that's why it's polybag.
Yeah, right.
But it's still really, really cool. The art is great by Davila. So if you like that kind of thing, a little bit more mature, and definitely towards the like horror, this would be a perfect Halloween book.
I was gonna say, too bad it's not coming out in October, like as a weekly series or something. I'd eat that up.
Yeah, but it is great. I really enjoyed it. So that is your A cover, which you can still kind of see through the polybag. We've got a bunch of really good variants for this as well. We've got a Disco Dazzler variant by Wilson. We've got this one's really cool. This is a foil cover by Marcos. We've got this is your interior artist. This is Davila. And this one doesn't have the polybag because this is my copy that I read. So that's what you can see there. And that's not Deadpool there. I thought that was originally Deadpool. This is another character that is in this book.
Okay.
That I wasn't super familiar with. You can also see there how he is a pretty jacked werewolf.
Yeah.
His transformation went extreme. We also have this Raza variant. We have a Sean Galloway variant. Very deceiving for what's on the inside. And finally, we have a 1 in 50 decal variant. And this is another one of those very pricey ones. This is $114.99. Or I said that weird. $114.99 over on infinityflux.net.
All right, well, I've got Venom War Spider-Man #1. This is going to be, I think it's a 3 or a 4 issue. Does it say one of something?
Nope.
No. It's either a 3 or a 4 issue miniseries tie into the Venom War event that just kicked off. This is written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, and the art is by Greg Land. And this runs alongside the events of Venom War #1 from last week. Peter, we saw him in that. We saw that the symbiote had run away from both Eddie and Dylan Brock and hid inside the closet of Peter Parker. Well, this one he puts it on, and he and the symbiote have a conversation. He's like, all right, let's do this, but keep our minds separate, behave yourself, that kind of thing. And then Peter puts the symbiote back on again. Like, we haven't seen that in years. And he finally wears the symbiote, and he heads out because he is going to go down to the wrestling arena where Eddie Brock is, where we saw him in Venom War #1. But on the way there, he is attacked by the Hobgoblin. but there's something a little bit different about the Hobgoblin this time. And then the rest of the issue is huge action. The two of them just fighting in the streets of New York, and it was awesome. It was very nostalgic for me. I said in our other video that it felt like I was reading a issue of Amazing Spider-Man from the mid '80s. Black suit Spider-Man fighting Hobgoblin. That's like classic '80s Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, that's it. Like, there's other. I don't want to spoil anything. There's other things that happen with Hobgoblin. There is another character that comes in to assist Spider-Man. The ending was a bit weird. I thought I didn't quite understand the ending, but I'm very excited to see where it goes. Um, this was awesome. Like, when they announced this Venom War, I haven't really been keeping up with the Venom stuff. You know, there's so much symbiote stuff going on lately, and it kind of goes over my head. And so I was like, I'm gonna try this event, see what it is. I really like this a lot. Like, this could have been an issue, a cool issue, like even without the Venom War stuff. Just having Spider-Man and Hobgoblin fight, and they fight a lot. There's, like I said, lots of action. The artwork's actually really good. Say what you will about Greg Land's art, but he draws a great black suit Spider-Man. Like, everything about it was just, I had a blast reading this. So, if you're keeping up with the Venom War and you're trying to figure out which tie-ins to get, I recommend this just because it was so much fun. And even if you're not reading the Venom War, maybe you could still pick this up anyway, because it doesn't really have a whole, other than him wearing the symbiote, doesn't really have a whole lot to do with what's going on with Eddie and Dylan Brock. It's just a fun Spider-Man fighting Hobgoblin story. And he does. There's a couple cool things that happens with the symbiote that was really cool to see. So I can't wait to see more of that. But yeah, just flat out an enjoyable issue, a great comic book, and I had a lot of fun reading it. That is our A cover, and that is the only cover we have for this. However, I did want to show you, this is the foil cover for Venom War #1, which came out last week. But if that's a nice spot foil. You can see his eyes and the spider symbol and the webbing behind him. Just a really nice foil cover that you could get both of these and have a really cool Venom story.
Well, next up for me, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Nightwatcher #1. So this is our next installment in the new era of Ninja Turtles that just started. And this is a character that we got a hint of back in the Free Comic Book Day Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue, this character of Nightwatcher. This is by Junie Ba, and the art is by Pharaoh Pei. And I thought this was really cool. This is really interesting, because we got a hint in the Free Comic Book Day book that this new vigilante called Nightwatcher has taken up residence in New York City. And now that the Turtles aren't there, the mutants who live there now, because there's a lot more mutants after some of the events in the previous Ninja Turtles run. More people got turned into mutant animals and stuff. They need a protector, and Nightwatcher has stepped up to do that. But Nightwatcher is very graphic vigilante. Brutal.
Yeah.
Nightwatcher does not care about, there's a thief, and they're like, Nightwatcher's beating him up, and they're like, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And they're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what you have to say. I don't care what info you could give me. My job is just to get you off the table.
Just to beat you.
Yeah. So you can already tell this is a pretty tough character. And this issue goes between Nightwatcher out on a mission of just protecting people, all of that, and someone interviewing or interviewing with different people around the city about what the current status of things are. So there's a woman in like a grocery store who's got her own opinions on the mutants and what she thinks about them. And there's an interview with like a construction worker guy, and he's got his thoughts on them. And then an interview with one of the mutants and kind of what their perspective is from the other side of this. So I don't know if it's going to turn out it's like April, like interviewing these people.
Oh,
but,
yeah, I thought about that.
It's a cool idea
Yeah.
to kind of get some inside idea of the current status of the city and everything that's going on, because the Turtles, when we read about them, they're other places.
Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of getting you familiar with what's going on within the city. Now, the other thing I'm going to say about this, and it's a big deal, we do find out who is under the helmet of Nightwatcher, and I'm not going to give it away. It's a major spoiler for this, but really interesting. And I feel like, initially the ideas for this book were like, oh, who's this Nightwatcher character? Now I think the question is more, why?
Why? Yeah.
Why and why are they so brutal in doing all of this? Like, there's definitely a dark side to this person in the suit. So definitely check it out if you are enjoying the new Ninja Turtle stuff. I didn't even plan on wearing the shirt today, but I'm all in for this new era of Ninja Turtles, and I think this is a really fun new spin on a, it's been a while since we got a new Ninja Turtles character
Right.
just out of nothing.
Yeah.
So that is this one, and this is the only cover I have right now.
Well, next up is Ultimates number 3. This is written by Denny's Camp, and the art is by Juan Frigeri. And at the beginning of this issue, we are introduced to an island that is near where the Gamma Bomb went off that turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk. And through a flashback scene, and then also through some redacted government documents, kind of sort of looks like the data pages in the X-Men books. They're like these government letters. So between those two things, we learn that the island and its inhabitants were caught in the fallout of the explosion of the Gamma Bomb explosion that turned Banner to the Hulk.
Polynesian island,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And so jump to present day Marvel. Iron Lad, Thor, and Sif travel to that island because they're investigating the immense amount of gamma radiation that it's putting out, and they quickly encounter some of the mutated life there. They have to fight with some of it. And Iron Lad's thinking, don't kill any of it because we don't know how many there are.
Yeah.
Like if you kill one, that might be an extinction event right there if there's only the one, because there's all kinds of weird mutated life there. But they eventually run into who I'm assuming will be this universe's version of She-Hulk. It is not Jen Walters, and she's not called She-Hulk in this either. But I'm assuming she's going to play that role at some point in this new Ultimate Universe. And it's not a spoiler to say that either, because she's there on the cover, and it was in the solicitations. Like, that's what this issue's about. So she takes them and shows them the other inhabitants of her village, and it's not exactly what Tony was expecting.
No, because Tony does. He's like, oh man, if there's one of you, we could take on the Maker right now.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a whole tribe.
Yeah,
and she's like, this is not a good thing that happened here.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel like this issue is kind of emotional when you get into, no, this was devastating to this island.
Yeah. Tony thought he was going to get an island full of Hulks, and I'll just say it's not that.
Yeah.
It's not that at all. But just another good issue. It's not a whole lot of action other than them fighting these monsters, but it was really cool to meet her and learn about this island and just everything that happened with it. Because like you said, it was kind of a kind of tugged on the old heartstrings a little bit. It was
one of those switch arounds where you kind of go into it being with the mindset of Tony and this, of like, oh man, this is gonna be great, and then you go, oh no, like you're still seeing the because it seems like, because Bruce Banner is brought up in this, but he's called like Director Banner or whatever,
something like that,
and you realize why he's on the Cabal, the Makers
stuff,
because he's not a good person, and you see the ramifications of things that he's done.
Yeah, for sure. So just another good issue of the Ultimates. It was really cool meeting, seeing new versions of classic characters. Like I can't wait to see more of her and if she's going to play a role on the team and all that kind of stuff. But that is our A cover right there. And we got a couple cool variants. We have this really nice In-Hyuk Lee variant. So that gives you a better look at, again, who I'm assuming will be the new She-Hulk at some point, but she's not called that in this. But maybe one day. And then there is the 1 in 25 Lupacino variant that we're selling for $12.99.
Yeah, I'll definitely say what I really liked about this issue is we kind of went into it thinking, oh, we're going to get this universe versions of She-Hulk, but we actually kind of got a new character. This isn't Jen Walters, so this is kind of a cool thing of like, this is this universe, other than we had Midas in that one issue. This Ultimate Universe has its own new characters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure, like, I'm all for new characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm excited to see what happens with this one, too. I imagine at some point, all these characters are going to come together in some big way.
I think there's, in probably next summer, I think we're going to get some kind of big Ultimate Universe, all the characters, because that's when the dome's going to open.
Yeah.
In like another 15 months or something like that.
Open, there's just going to be a little fart sound. That's it. Everything inside's dead.
They ran out of food. They're all just, they're like,
years ago.
Yeah, we prepared for nothing, I guess.
So next up for me, I've got Gotham City Sirens #2. So this is the weekly series. started last week, and I really, really like this. So, uh, this is definitely a over the top, much in the style of like a Harley Quinn book, but involving all the characters, and it's just fun. I think this book is, I don't think it's going to have long lasting ramifications for the DC universe. It's just a really fun book. So in the first one, we found out about this weird energy drink that's being distributed in Gotham that people are just going crazy about. People are lining up at convenience stores to get it. So Poison Ivy is investigating that. We had Catwoman met up with, which is a thing I didn't really understand. It must be from a previous series where White Rabbit, the Batman villain, or kind of the very Catwoman-like character, is split into two people, but they share like the same mind. So there's kind of the one that's in the suit, and then there's one where she's just like a regular woman. And White Rabbit has been the part in the suit has been taken by somebody, and it's up to Catwoman to help them with that. And then you have Harley, who ran into Mechanical Bison running through Central Park, and she had to figure out what's going on there. Well, in this one, they figure it all has something to do with this energy drink. They all, there's some clues that ties them all together. And so they say, we've got to break into this facility that's making them, save White Rabbit, and shut them down. But they don't know where their facility is. It's definitely like a hidden place. So they're gonna figure out where a truck is delivering this drink and find out a way to get on board when it goes back to the facility and break into it. And that's just, I like that it's a loose structure for an issue, but that gives a lot of room for a lot of fun stuff as they go to the convenience store and try to figure out how to get onto this truck, and dealing with the guy who works at the convenience store. And Harley wants to get a bunch of disguises together for them, and they're like, why do we need these disguises? Plus, there is the other side of it, which I don't want to give away who the big villain was in the first issue, but who's behind all of this. And they've got their lackeys that are a bunch of shirtless cowboys, which is just another really funny idea. We find out more about what's going on over there with them. So it's just a really fun issue, and I love that this is weekly, because I feel like it's got the energy pacing of a weekly book. I would say like the end of this, like there's a cliffhanger, but it's not a big cliffhanger. But it's like it doesn't need to be one, because we're getting another issue next week. So I think
more
that's
weekly
awesome.
books, please.
Yeah, I love the idea of weekly books. DC's played with that idea for a little while, and I think it's really fun. So we've got our A cover right here by Terry Dodson. You can see maybe one of the big characters in it also. We have this Gilliam March connecting variant, this time with Harley. We've got this Scott Forbes variant, which is like kind of a high fashion Met Gala look for the characters.
Hellfire Gala, just for Gotham.
Yep. We've got this Dan Hip Beetlejuice variant. It's really fun.
And we'll see a few more Beetlejuice variants, I think, on this show. Well, actually, that's one.
We also have a 1 in 25 Hilliard variant that we're selling for $12.99. And this is not Gotham City Sirens, but since I showed off the one Beetlejuice cover, I do want to show this came out this week. So there is a facsimile edition of House of Secrets, the first appearance of Swamp Thing. There's a variant for that one that is Beetlejuice, or House of Beetlejuice. So I felt like this is going to be a really hot cover this week.
Yeah,
because it is like a direct homage to the book that's on the inside, too. So very, very cool one right there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, this is a great book. If you're a fan of books like Harley Quinn, but maybe the current series is too cartoony for you, this feels more like the Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Conner era of the character that is really fun.
All right, well, next we've got Ultraman Avengers #1, and this is just a really fun book. It's written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, and the art is by Francesco Manna. And this one, the Ultra Guard, which is the 3-man Ultraman team, they're investigating this multiversal disturbance when this portal opens up and in comes Spider-Man Miles Morales, comes right through it. And they actually don't have the stereotypical hero fight. They actually explain who they are and what's going on, and they pretty quickly realize, oh, this is multiversal shenanigans. And I should say, this seems like it's out of continuity, so don't worry about how this fits in with anything else. It's just its own thing. But together, Miles and the Ultraman team, they trace some more multiversal energy, or some more like Earth 616 coded energy, I guess you could say, and that leads them to a fight with a villain. I don't really want to say too much about that villain in that fight because it would actually reveal the real villain behind the whole story. So I don't want to tell you anything about that. But after the fight, another portal opens up, and in come the Avengers. And they're like, "Oh, we got a warning," and I won't say anything more about that either. And they're all gonna have to work together. The Avengers and the Ultraman team, they're gonna have to work together to save both universes because both universes are in danger. And I'll say this was just really fun. It was really cool. The art was really good. The action's really good. Like, I had a really good time. I don't know a whole lot about Ultraman other than just the basics, but you don't really need to know that much. I mean, it's everything that you need to know. And seeing the Avengers there too, like everything about it was just a fun comic book and out of continuity. So you can just read it free and clear of anything else. Got our A cover right here, and we've got a couple cool variants. This is the Francesco variant. And then this is the Sue variant.
Very cool. Next up for me, I've got Johnny Quest #1. So this follows up from the Free Comic Book Day Johnny Quest title, written by Joe Casey, and the art is by Sebastian Perez. And this definitely, I said this in the other show, this actually does benefit from you reading the Free Comic Book Day book. I almost wish it was reprinted in this or something, cool. Because in that one you saw the Quest family out on the sea. They were doing some experiments. Some lightning struck the boat, and they said we got to get back to shore. And they were just a few miles away from like their base, their home, right at the beach, their lab. When they got back, things looked a little bit different. So that all happened in the Free Comic Book Day book. This picks up as they're like walking up onto the beach and checking out all of that. And they can't quite put their finger on it, but like they go inside their house and they're like, well, like this is the house, but the has been rearranged a little bit. But other than that, it seems normal. But I think like maybe Haji or Race or somebody says like, but it kind of feels like we're in like a mausoleum. It's very still and stale air and all of that. And as they look around, it just looks like people have been there, but it hasn't been for a while. Dr. Quest's lab, looks like people had worked in there, but something weird's happened. But as they're doing this, Dr. Quest discovers something in his own lab, and he tells Johnny and Haji and Bandit, like, okay, y'all need to get out of here for a second. Race and I need to talk about something. So Johnny and Haji and run out. Bandit runs away. They go chasing after him when suddenly some drones start attacking them, which is pretty crazy in this world considering where they came from.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give away. It's pretty obvious what happened, but to the degree of what happened is really interesting. As Johnny and Haji also discover some tombstones on the property, and a mysterious figure approaches them, and all is revealed. But it seems like it's setting up an interesting series going forward, and kind of a cool direction for Johnny Quest to take. But still feels a lot like the classic show, just reinvigorated. Modernized in the storytelling and the art and all of that. So very cool. We got Johnny Quest #1. We have some variants, of course. So we've got this Pace variant. We've got this Rainy variant, which is kind of close to what happened in the Free Comic Book Day book. We have also a Jay Lee cover.
All right, well, next I've got the Iron Fist 50th Anniversary Special. This is just a one-shot celebrating the 50th anniversary of Iron Fist. And this one, we get 5 different short little stories in this by a whole bunch of different creators. We get one with that actually takes place right after Iron Fist number 15, the second appearance of Sabretooth, where Danny is training with Wolverine to prepare for his next fight against Sabretooth. That's written by Chris Claremont. The art is by Alan Medina on that one. We get a story with the new Iron Fist, Lin Lai, and also um, Pei, who is the young girl that hangs out with him. They fight the Shocker. We get a story, a little bit more lighthearted story with Danny calling in Misty Knight and Colleen Wing to help with a community celebration at the local civic center. We get a fun one-page story about Luke Cage and Iron Fist making a commercial for their Heroes for Hire business, which is really fun. And then the last story seems like it's like the main one, like it might actually continue on, and it sort of goes back and forth between um, Danny Rand celebrating his 34th birthday with some of his friends, and a sort of like this metaphysical fight that he's having with Razor Fist. And the ending is a little bit weird, and like I said, I do wonder if it's going to continue forward. Seems like it might have kind of a big impact on Danny Rand. So if you're an Iron Fist fan, you get 5 stories in here. Like I said, just a one shot, 5 one and done stories, but that's a lot of fun. So we got our A cover right here. We have a really cool Kevin Eastman variant where he's fighting Sabretooth. And then we have a David Aja variant, sort of homaging the Immortal Weapons series that he did with Matt Fraction's really cool.
But next up for me, I've got Defenders of the Earth number 1. So this is also from Mad Cave, much like the Flash Gordon book. But this is not in the same universe as the current Flash Gordon book. This is in the kind of same continuity as the old Defenders of the Earth TV show. This is written by Dan DiDio, and the art is by Jim Calafiore. And I'm familiar with the show. I know the characters better than I know the show, but I don't know how the show ended. So I'm not sure if this is like a direct like following the final episode or whatever. But in this, we have the team of the Defenders of the Earth, which is the Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, Lothar, but when it begins, they're in a big fight against Ming, the Merciless' forces, but Flash Gordon isn't there. Because it seems like Flash Gordon is off actually fighting Ming personally, and they're kind of dealing with what's going on the ground. When all of a sudden Flash Gordon comes out of the smoke. I won't say what he's got with him, but it's pretty interesting. And he's basically like, "That's it, war's over. I beat Ming." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Well, we flash forward in time, and that kind of seems like where this story is going to take place is a few years after that, actually several years after that, because Flash Gordon has a son, which I'm not sure if that was in the original thing.
I think it was.
But he's older now, and he's having a really hard time even like getting to his dad. Because Flash Gordon now seems like he works for a big business, and he has a hard time getting through all the red tape to even get to the office of his dad. We have and it seems like this kid has a better relationship with some of the other Defenders than Flash does anymore. We've got the Phantom, who's now kind of reminiscing with Lothar about he wanting to go back to the jungle, and that's his. It feels like his home and all of that. So it's definitely a generational thing. It's they're a little bit later in their careers, and it seems like it may be dealing with the next generation of characters that may be taking over this position. Maybe not, I don't know, but it seems like, with this being later on in their careers, and we're seeing some younger versions of characters, that it could be that. But it does seem like another big part of this is going to be what actually happened with that fight between Flash and Ming in the past. What is the... Something weird happened there, and no one can quite figure it out. So, interesting first issue. I will say it was a little hard to follow. It jumps pretty drastically between scenes, so you kind of have to recalibrate where you are. In one scene, you'll have the Phantom talking about, like, I'd really like to go back to the jungle. The next page, he's in the jungle, and you're like, oh, I guess he went there. So it does, you may have to read it at a slower pace, but I do think the story is really interesting. And if you're more familiar with the show and kind of the status of the characters in the show, you'll probably follow this even better than I did. So, very interesting for a first issue. I think this is just a mini series. So that is your A cover by the interior artist. And then we also have a action figure variant with Flash.
Which I love because I had that figure when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Played with it a lot.
I like Flash Gordon's redesign for the show. Where it's not the tank top from the movie.
Right.
It's not his old costume. It's that.
All right, well, next up I've got DC versus Vampires World War V #1. Now, this is a sequel to the DC versus Vampires storyline that's already been out there from a couple years back, but this is now labeled as an Elseworlds book. You know, the original one was too. They just weren't using that label at the time. This is written by Matthew Rosenberg and the artist by Otto Schmidt. And I actually haven't read the original DC versus Vampires, so I was a little bit confused as to what's going on here. This heavily assumes that you have read that and you know where all the characters are and what the status quo is and all that stuff. So I was a little bit confused, but I could still kind of follow what was going on. Apparently, there is a truce between the humans that are led by Green Arrow and the vampires that are led by Barbara Gordon. But Damian Wayne is leading a separate group of vampires that wants to overthrow Barbara. So she tells Green Arrow and his human group to take care of Damian's group, or else the truce is off and they're all going to die, basically. And that's kind of where I'll leave it at that, because like I said, I didn't quite know all the little details of who's doing what and where and why and that kind of thing. But that is the overall gist of the story. So if you read the first series, I think you'll really like this one because it just seems like it is a continuation of that. So we have our nice A cover right there, and then we have
very creepy.
Yeah, this really creepy Steve Beach cover, and then this really nice foil cover by Homer with Barbara Gordon, and you can see the sort of the spot foil on it.
So if you didn't get enough vampires with Blood Hunt,
right,
take another helping, this time from DC.
But in all fairness, DC versus Vampires came first, right? So this is continuing that, not jumping on the bandwagon of Blood Hunt.
Next up, I've got a new book called Babs, and this is really interesting because this is by Garth Ennis and the art's by Jason Burrows, who have worked together in the past quite a bit. And this is really fun. This is definitely a more lighthearted book, very adventurous as we meet this character Babs, and it even starts off very like Conan-like, saying, this character is known by these names and stuff, but all the names she's known by is like a pretty good swords person, and a lot of people say a lot of stuff about her, just not to her face.
Yeah.
And so, because she is, my way of describing her is Red Sonja by way of Ryan Reynolds. So not Deadpool, but like a little bit more snarky than a Red Sonja, a little bit more irreverent, because they don't speak kind of like old English or whatever in there. They're very like modern and pretty mature title here in how they talk. But it's really fun because this is kind of a classic fantasy world. There's dragons, there's leprechauns, which is really funny. But there's messed up twists to all of them. And we see in this how Babs gets, I think I remember the solicitation talking about like how she gets into situations and then makes them worse. You definitely get that in here, as she is kind of bothered by some local ruffians made up of like a little orc or a goblin and a troll and some other big dudes in a tavern. But when she single-handedly defeats them, they want to blame everything about their defeat on everything, but they just aren't very good at fighting. And so they've sworn vengeance against her because clearly she had a leg up somehow, and they are going to figure it out. But it just seems like it's going to be a really fun Conan, Red Sonja type story, but a little bit more irreverent and a little bit sillier and a little bit more vulgar. But if that sounds like your speed, definitely check it out because it was fun. That is your A cover. I love this variant. This is the Chris Burnham variant. Clearly an homage to Masters of the Universe, which is really cool. And we have a 1-in-4, because don't you like that ratio? Black and white Burnham variant we're selling for $4.99.
Well, I've got the second issue of Kill All Immortals, and this one was just as good as the first one. And this one, Frey and Owen, he's the reporter who's hanging out with Frey. They're on the run, right? Frey's family attacked the both of them last issue, and now they are running away from them. And they want Frey scolded. They can't kill her, obviously, because she's immortal, but they want Owen killed. And so Owen says that, they need leverage on Frey's family to try to shut them down, but she says, well, they've got their hands in everything. They own everything. There's nothing we can do. And they do come up with a plan to get some leverage on them, but it involves traveling to one of Frey's family's homes to obtain something that they hope will give them the leverage that they need. And I don't want to say what their plan is or how it goes. I don't want to spoil anything, but we do get a little bit more insight into how the family became immortal in the first place. And I think over the course of the series, we'll get more and more peeks into that. There's a couple of great fight scenes as well. There's one between Frey and a group of mercenaries. There's another between Frey and her brother Thor, which is really cool. So the artwork's great. There's lots of action and blood and violence and that kind of thing as they try to figure out how to stop this just immensely powerful, both physically and status wise, like this immensely powerful family. It's just a really cool, interesting story. So I liked it a lot. There's our A cover right there. And then we have this variant by Tao.
Next up for me, I've got Transformers number 11. I can't say too much about this because there's a lot of spoilers in this issue, but it was a very fun. And the Transformers know before they can take down the big Decepticon portal that opened up that's kind of the bridge between Earth and Cybertron, because they want to. A lot of Earth can be mined for Energon. The Transformers know we've got to take this out. The Autobots want to take it down. But the problem is, if they do that, they're going to lose Cliffjumper and Jazz, who have been taken captive by Shockwave. And so they've got to pull themselves together and attempt to infiltrate that and rescue their friends. And they have a secret weapon. But what I say in this, but it isn't enough, and will it work out the way they hope it will? And you'll see when you read it, but there's a triumphant moment quickly followed by a what just happened moment that I won't spoil, but is very cool, and just another great issue of Transformers. And I think that, I can't remember if this wraps up, I think this wraps up the second arc.
Okay.
This one, or I think the letters said something about that, but we are getting close to the end of the second arc of Transformers. So there's your A cover. We also have this Corona variant, which is your interior artist. We've got some incentives. So this is the 1 in 25 Lullaby variant that we're selling for $4.99, but it's because there is some spine dings on it. But if you don't mind and you just like the cover, you can get it for basically $1 more than what you got the A cover for. We also have a 1 in 10 Darbo variant that we're selling for $5.99. And
Cliffjumper on that one, I like that one.
Yeah, and this is the 1 in 50 Craig variant, which also has spine dings, but we are selling it for $19.99. And there is a bigger variant that you can check out on the website, but it is a major spoiler for the issue, so I don't have that here to show.
Yeah.
But you can go to infinityflux.net to check it out.
Yeah, we definitely didn't want to show that one because it's pretty, it's definitely spoilery,
but
for sure. But it's awesome.
Awesome, and it's an homage to another comic, and it's really
cool. All right, so next up for me is, what is it? From the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives #2. And this is really cool. We were at a local convention here a couple weekends ago, and Andy had a table selling some art, and we actually had a table right next to Rick Leonardi, who was the artist on this book. We got to talking to him. He actually showed us the pages on his iPad, and we walked us through the whole book. It was just really cool to sort of get that behind-the-scenes information on this. But in this one, it features the sort of juxtaposing stories between Jason dealing with his trauma, and then the Joker being treated for his, I guess you call it psychosis, in Arkham. The psychiatrist that's working with Joker thinks that he finally made a breakthrough. Maybe he's wrong, because the Joker, there's just no cure in the Joker, right? And then Batman, to try to help Jason a little bit more, he does something a little bit drastic for him to sort of help along with that recovery. And he also seeks out Nightwing, which I thought this part was pretty cool. He wants to ask about what it was like growing up being Robin. You know, do you regret it? Do you wish it hadn't happened? That kind of thing. And he and Nightwing have a really interesting conversation. And then the ending is really cool too, and it may lead to some kind of dark places. So just another cool. It's printed on newsprint, like the first one was, so it kind of feels like an old school book. But yeah, just a really cool story of what happened if Jason Todd had lived. So there's our A cover right there, and I love this. We have this awesome Dan Mora variant.
About as classic looking as you can get.
Yeah.
Next up for me, I've got Amazing Spider-Man number 55. And very misleading cover because nothing like that happens
Right.
in this issue. I will say you only see Spider-Man, Peter Parker in the Spider-Man suit for the first 2 pages, and one of those is a splash page.
Yeah.
What is cool about this, it has a guest artist, which is Emilio Lazo, which I thought the art was really nice in this one, and draws a really cool Spider-Man, especially that splash page was really nice. But this is definitely a fill-in issue between story arcs, because in this, it's actually Peter trying to have a date with Shay Markin, who is the nurse from Ravencroft, that he's been between the panels, on again, off again, trying to have a relationship or trying to get to know this person that I think Aunt May set him up with way back.
Or it was Aunt Anna, wasn't it?
Because
she worked there, yeah.
And this deals with the classic Peter conundrum of he's always late for a date, or he always has to leave early because there is a Spider-Man issue that comes up. He can't tell this date what's going on, and of course that makes them not trust him, think that he's not into them, all that kind of stuff. And as they're sitting at dinner and he's making all these promises, what do you know? Outside the window, Rhino and Screwball. Is it Screwball? Highball?
Yes, Screwball.
Screwball.
Yeah.
Are getting into mischief down there, and is it up to Spider-Man to stop them? No, it's up to average guy Peter Parker to go down there and say, "Hey guys, I'm trying to have a date.
Knock it off.
Could you try knocking it off?"
Yeah.
So this is definitely a fill-in issue. This is so they can get kind of their numbers in the right order, so they can have their big landmark issue come up and everything when the writer changes and all of that. It was an interesting issue. Who knows if this relationship with this character is going to go any further, but it was definitely a nice breather issue in between really complicated big stories. So there is your A cover with a scene that has probably happened in Spider-Man's life before, but not in these pages. We also have, I love this one. This is the Vecchio Disco Dazzler variant, which is actually a super cool suit.
I love that.
And I wouldn't mind seeing him wear that.
Make a great foil cover.
Oh, yeah. We also have this great, not an X-Men comic. This is for Amazing Spider-Man, but this is the Disney homage variant.
And don't get confused, because X-Men number 2 is out this week, but this isn't that. So don't get the books confused.
Whenever you see Disney, just assume it's probably a Spider-Man book, unless it's Donald Duck, and then maybe it's the Wolverine book.
Right.
I don't know. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. We also have a 1 in 25 Cho variant, which is really nice. We're selling for $14.99.
Well, we have a couple of Absolute Power tie-ins this week. The first one is Absolute Power Task Force 7, number 4. And this whole issue is Nightwing and Tim Drake and the Ray and Miss Martian and Voodoo fighting Failsafe. And they're doing it in a very interesting place. Like, I wasn't expecting to see them where they are. We also see Steve Trevor sneaking around Gamora Island. He sees what Waller has the captured supervillains doing. I mean, that's it. Like, that's pretty much it. It's the whole thing is them fighting Failsafe, and Failsafe is super powerful. So what can they possibly do against him? But this doesn't seem really super important to the main story, but it was just really good.
Other than making Nightwing very angry and basically being like, "I'm going to stop them at any."
Yeah, that's what I had written down. It's an action-packed issue, and it's good to see Nightwing let loose a little bit.
Yeah.
So he gets mad. He gets mad in this. So it's just cool to see them all fight. But this series, each issue focuses on a different Amazo robot or Failsafe, because he's part of the Task Force 7. So yeah, don't miss out if you're trying to get all those. So there's our A cover right there, and this really awesome Dan Mora foil variant with Failsafe. I love that one. And then this is the John Timms connecting variant.
what I really liked about this was the team that was put together.
Yeah.
A team that you would never expect to really work together with Nightwing and Ray and Ms. Martian and all that.
Yeah.
But turns out they're a really cool interactions between them.
Yeah.
Okay, next up for me, I've got Action Comics number 1068. This is continuing Gail Simone's, the main story in this is Gail Simone's with Superman, which is interesting about this. It's Superman. There's aliens invaded. They have this big contest. Basically, if you lose, they destroy your planet. And Superman says, like, okay, I'll play. And he has to do all these challenges and fight things. But what this is really is to show the character of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
How good he is, his morals, all of that. It's very classic feeling. And it really just bolsters Superman's heroism in this, which is really cool. There's some great stuff with Jimmy and Lois, as they accidentally in the last issue got picked as the seconds for Superman.
Right.
So if he loses, it's up to them to do it.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean to do that. But Lois, being the ever reporter, when they get to kind of go onto the spaceship and everything, they're like, "Hey, let's do some investigative journalism here," which is really interesting. And the scene with all the aliens is cool because you look at one of the tables, it looks like Lobo's sitting there, and there's some really cool cameos. Now, the backup story in this is continuing the one by Rainbow Rowell, where Lois is having to deal with Clark now that she's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, about the difference between Clark, Superman, and Clark being her husband, and Clark being a reporter, and having to segment those out, and Clark having a hard time with that too, where she basically says, "Nope, you've got an unfair advantage, and we can't rely on Superman for our stories because, he's a third party. We can't do that." So Clark's getting put through the ringer about his job and everything, but it's really interesting, and it's cool to see this work dynamic with Lois and Clark as opposed to the at home and the Superman and Lois.
Yeah.
So really interesting issue as we continue with Action Comics. And we got a variant for this. This is the Wes Craig.
That's real nice.
Variant, which this is going to be one of your artists on the Absolute Power one-shot coming up. And we have this 1 in 25 LaRocca variant selling for $19.99 with the Dominators, which don't appear in this, but definitely feels like something they could be up to.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, this is the other Absolute Power tie-in. This is Green Lantern number 14. And this actually follows up a bit on the events from Absolute Power Task Force 7 number 3 from a few weeks ago. In this one, Hal Jordan has escaped captivity. He was taken captive on Gamora Island where he escapes. But he's still powerless, right? He still doesn't have his ring quite yet. So he has to use whatever confiscated weapons that he can find. It's a lot of villain weapons. And some of them are really effective and some of them are silly, but in a fun, goofy way. And he just has to try to make it work. We do see a bit more of Jadestone, which is the Amazo robot that absorbed Alan Scott's powers. And we see that it's still dealing with how Alan Scott's powers are conflicting with its programming, kind of giving it choices now. And we see more of Carol Ferris and the rest of the JSA as they try to come up with a plan to get more heroes to come to the Tower of Fate with them. So yeah, just another cool tie into Absolute Power. What's Hal Jordan doing and the JSA, and there's something going on with Jadestone that I think might be the key to undoing some stuff. So we'll have to see. But yeah, a really good issue. So there's our A cover right there. And then we have this nice 1 in 25 Hill variant that we're selling for $12.99.
Next up for me, I've got Geiger issue number 5, and this is great. This wraps up kind of our first story arc of the series as Geiger has his final showdown with the electrician who stole his dog Barney, and Geiger tore his way to that point so he could get his dog back. And yeah, this is a pretty dramatic final issue as the electrician has some horrible plans and some horrible tactics.
Final issue?
Of this story arc.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what? No.
Yeah, it's the final issue of the story arc and the kind of end of the electrician story. Plus, we do get a hint at maybe what's to come, and the return of one of the best characters from the unnamed universe may be coming back in some way or another. That it's really interesting. So, just the one cover for that one to show as we wrap up this first story arc.
Well, I want to talk about Venom War again because this is Venom number 36, which is also a Venom War tie-in, and this was actually really really good too. So the first few pages of this, we see Old Man Dylan Brock in his own time, which kind of looks like a cross between the dystopian futures of the Terminator and the Matrix. Things aren't great there. We also see some older versions of a few other characters. I don't want to tell you which ones, but one of them was really cool to see the older version of that character. Yeah. But he travels to the past in an effort to find his younger self, the past, which is our present day Marvel, in an effort to find young Dylan, and he wants to kill the future. That's what he keeps calling, kill his future, right, to make a better one. So he does find young Dylan, and he tells him that he's going to create a weapon for him, but that to do that, there are 3 points even further in the past that he needs to visit for some reason. We don't quite know yet why. And he travels back to the time of Amazing Spider-Man number 28, the original one, which was the first appearance of Molten Man. And it's kind of nice because the scene, there's a few panels in this that line up. I opened my omnibus and lined it. They're exactly the same. The characters are saying the same things. So he goes back there because it seems like Molten Man may have something to do with this weapon that he wants to build. And so we'll have to see, where he goes from there. This is a cool issue, though. The artwork is really good, and it's cool to see, the older versions of these characters. And I do wonder which other moments in the past he's gonna journey to.
Is that gonna be one of them?
Yeah, I don't know. So this wasn't. I don't know. This seems like the wrong homage cover for this. Like Molten Man's in it, but this was way before first appearance of Punisher. So I don't quite understand why this cover. But it was still really cool. Like, Old Man Dylan's really cool. Him going to the past and them.
It's very Cable-like.
Yeah, them tying it in with old school Amazing Spider-Man comics. It was just really good. So Venom War is off to a great start, I think. So there's our really cool A cover right there. We have this Disco Dazzler variant. Is he wearing anything?
No, he just looks like
he's riding. He came in like a wrecking ball on that disco ball.
He's kind of sparkly too. But...
yeah, a little bit. And then there is this really cool Yarden variant featuring Eddie and Dylan facing off against each other, but this doesn't happen in this book.
Does that on the back have the other cover? Is that one of those homages where the back side of it is investigative journalism right here?
Yeah, it does. Boom. Very.
I mean,
it's close. It's not
close,
really,
but it's
it's there's the original, then there's that, so it's a little. It's fine.
The placement is there.
Yeah. Whoops.
So, next up for me is Darth Vader. This is issue number 49. And not a whole lot to say. This is just the penultimate issue of Star Wars Darth Vader. And it could be the end of Vader as an ongoing series, at least for a while. But if they do something else, it's going to be interesting to see how they would do it, because we are leading up to the death of Vader as we're heading into where Return of the Jedi would take place, and then the new Star Wars books we're getting after this are going to be taking place after Return of the Jedi. And this is big because there has been a Star Wars and Darth Vader series running concurrently since the new Marvel era started back in 2015. This is coming to the end of an era for this, but I'm really looking forward to what is coming next. It feels like we're heading out into uncharted waters for Star Wars comics, and that is a great thing. So, just if you've been reading Darth Vader, know that we are getting close to wrapping it up, and that is your A cover. And we have this really nice Ruin variant, just very epic.
Well, I've got Hellverine number 4, which is the final issue of this series. Just wanted to make you aware in case you've been collecting this. Since it's the finale, I can't really say much of anything without spoiling everything. But it is a very satisfying ending, and there's one death in this. There's a character in this who dies, and it's pretty brutal. And I was like, should this maybe be a red band? Like, I don't. This was kind of weird. But yeah, it's a good conclusion of this story, and maybe we'll see more. You know, maybe so. So there's our A cover right there, and then we have this Raza variant. That's really cool.
And last one for me is She-Hulk number 10, Sensational She-Hulk number 10. And unlike Darth Vader, this is the final issue of this series.
Which I'm super sad about because
Yeah.
I love this book.
It's very sad to see this come to an end. It's a really fun final issue. Not a whole lot to say about it other than, you know, it wraps up some storylines and sends the character off very nicely. We know that the next She-Hulk we're going to be getting is going to be in that Avengers Assemble mini-series. And I hope there's plans for another ongoing She-Hulk series after that. Because I've really enjoyed this run, Sensational She-Hulk, and the She-Hulk run before that. Sad to see it come to a close, but it had a great run. And yeah, let's all write in and hope for a new one.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no hint at the end of this of like a to be continued and something else. It's just ends nicely.
That's it, yeah.
So that is our A cover. And we have this really nice Mirka and Dolfo variant.
That's cool. I've got two more just real quick. This is the Wolverine Annual for this year. This is the next part of the Infinity Watch storyline. In this one, Apex and Multitude, they're actually together. And they feel a pull by the Soul Stone that leads them to Wolverine. And I won't say why that is, but you do learn, like, why him specifically. But, of course, you know, heroes meeting up for the first time, Wolverine and Apex get into a big old fight. And this, just like all the other ones, this feels like a one-and-done story, even though it is part of the larger Infinity Watch story. This feels like you could just pick this up and read it and then be done and still have a satisfying story. But yeah, I just want to let you know that the next part is out if you have been collecting these. And that is the only cover I have for that one. And then the last one I've got is Spider-Boy number 10. And in this one, it's just more Spider-Verse shenanigans that have nothing to do with the Spider Society book. So we've got two different Spider-Verse things going on right now. Bailey finds himself in the 1966 animated universe, you know, where like, you know, does whatever a spider can. Like he's in that world. And he travels to a couple of other universes as well, which you will recognize, but I don't want to spoil which ones they are. While he's doing all that, Madam Web and Silk and Aranya are working to get him back. And I will say that I'm very interested with how this ended, and I really want to see how that ending plays into future issues. There's something really interesting that happens there, too. So just another cool issue of Spider-Boy right there. There's our A cover, and then we have this awesome CF Villa Stormbreakers variant. This does not happen in the book, though.
Spider-Boy does not turn into a werewolf.
That's right.
But who knows? He could have his moment in the future.
Maybe.
Seems like he's done everything else.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think that is it for our early comics review video. That's plenty.
Yeah.
What more do you want from us? But there was more books that came out this week, so you can see them all over on infinityflux.net, where they are available to order right now, and while supplies last. That's the warning I give you every time, so don't come crying to me that I didn't tell you while supplies last. Yep. We want to also talk about, we had our new show premiere this last week, our Infinity Flux Letters page show that kicked off to a great start for our official first episode of it. So go check that out. Leave us comments because that's the show where we answer your questions.
Yeah. And we do it live so we can talk to you while it's going on, that kind of thing.
Yes. So join us there. We're going to be doing it again. It's going to be bi-weekly or bi-monthly, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Twice a month.
Every other Wednesday.
Every other Wednesday.
Yeah, so the next one is next week on the 21st.
Yes. So join us there for that one. And stay tuned for a bunch of other fun stuff coming up on our channel. And let us know in the comments which book you are most looking forward to or reading this week.
Yeah.
We'd love to know what has piqued your interest. And leave us a question there, too. We're checking everywhere for questions for our Letters page show. So we'll check there as well to see if you have anything to say. But until next time, see ya.